Today we celebrate feminine beauty in this theme and era, expressed through style, elegance, posture, and presence. The 1990s grunge movement created something extraordinary for women to a rebellion wrapped in flannel that became high fashion. Where comfort met defiance and created an entirely new language of feminine beauty, this wasn't just music spilling into clothing. This was women rewriting the rules of what it meant to look powerful, authentic, and effortlessly cool. Picture this in 1992. A single flannel shirt could cost $8 at a thrift store in Seattle. But by 1994, designers were charging $150 for their interpretation of that same grunge aesthetic. What happened in those 2 years? Women discovered that layers could be armor, that oversized could be elegant, and that the most subversive thing they could do was refuse to try too hard. The grunge look emerged from the Pacific Northwest music scene. But it was women who transformed it from a uniform of angst into a statement of independence. While the music pounded from venues like the Crocodile Cafe and Sub Pop Records signed bands that would change rock forever, women in Seattle, Portland, and beyond were creating their own visual revolution. They took the masculine codes of flannel shirts and work boots and made them unmistakably feminine through layering, proportions, and an attitude that said they belonged anywhere they chose to stand. The silhouette was everything to deliberately oversized flannel shirts became the foundation. Worn open over fitted band tees or slip dresses, creating contrast between structure and flow. These weren't the fitted flannel shirts of earlier decades. These were borrowed from boyfriend proportions that women claimed as their own. The sleeves were rolled up just so, revealing delicate wrists that contradicted the shirt's bulk. Underneath, they might layer a thermal shirt for texture, or let a slip dress peek out from beneath, creating unexpected glimpses of femininity within the deliberate dishevelment. The color palette spoke in earth tones and jewel depths to forest green, burgundy, navy blue, and that perfect faded red that looked like it had survived 100 washes. Buffalo plaid became iconic. But solid colors held their own power. Women learned to mix patterns carefully, a striped thermal under a solid flannel, or a floral slip dress emerging from beneath plaid layers. The key was looking effortless while being completely intentional. Denim played the supporting role perfectly to always worn, never pristine. Light wash jeans with deliberate trips at the knees, or darker denim that looked lived in rather than distressed by design. Some women chose vintage Levi's 50 sash ones. Others preferred the looser fit of boyfriend jeans. The denim was always slightly too long, pooling around chunky boots or high-top sneakers in a way that suggested movement andies. Footwear anchored the entire look with substantial weight. Doc Martens became the gold standard to those iconic black leather boots with their distinctive sole and yellow stitching. But women also embraced Converse high tops, combat boots, and later, the platform shoes that would bridge grunge into the mid-90s. The shoes were always sturdy, always practical, and always made a statement about being ready for anything. Accessories were minimal but meaningful. A single silver ring, maybe inherited or found in a vintage shop. Small hoop earrings or simple studs. The occasional choker to black velvet or thin leather to that became a signature of the era. Hair accessories meant scrunchies in dark colors or simple elastic bands, never anything that tried too hard to be pretty. The makeup philosophy aligned perfectly with the clothing. Less was more, but what was there had to look authentic. A touch of burgundy lipstick that might wear off throughout the day, leaving just a stain. Smudged eyeliner that suggested last night's eyeliner rather than this morning's fresh application. The goal was to look naturally beautiful rather than constructed, as if beauty was simply part of who these women were rather than something they had to create each morning. This aesthetic required confidence to carry off to the ability to walk into any room looking like you hadn't tried, while knowing that every element had been carefully considered. It was fashion that pretended not to be fashion, beauty that claimed not to care about beauty, all while creating one of the most influential and enduring looks in modern style history. The 1990s grunge aesthetic for women represented a complete reimagining of feminine beauty through deliberate imperfection and authentic self-expression. The layering technique became an art form that women perfected through experimentation and intuition. A typical ensemble might begin with a fitted thermal shirt in cream or gray, add a vintage band tee featuring Nirvana, Pearl Jam, or Soundgarden, then crown the look with an oversized flannel shirt worn open like a jacket. The proportions were crucial to each layer, had to maintain its own integrity while contributing to the overall silhouette. Women learned to push sleeves up in careful disorder, letting different fabrics speak through at the wrists and neckline, creating visual interest through texture and glimpses of what lay beneath. The culture surrounding this look was as intentional as the clothing itself. These women moved through record stores with purpose, flipping through vinyl bins while their flannel sleeves brushed against album covers. They claimed space in coffee shops that smelled of dark roast and cigarettes, where conversations about music and art stretched through rainy Pacific Northwest afternoons. The look was designed for movement to for dancing in small venues where the stage was barely elevated, for walking through university campuses where authenticity mattered more than polish. Their daily routines reflected the aesthetics' values. Morning preparations were deliberately minimal to hair might be washed every other day and left to air dry in natural waves, enhanced perhaps with a touch of mousse for texture. The goal was to look like you had just rolled out of bed, even though achieving that perfect level of dishevelment often required more thought than traditional glamour. These women understood that true coolness came from appearing effortless while being completely intentional. The workplace presented interesting challenges for grunge-influenced women. In offices and retail environments, they adapted the look by choosing the most structured pieces to a burgundy flannel worn as a shirt rather than a jacket, paired with dark jeans and Doc Martens that could pass for professional footwear. The rebellion became subtle, a small silver nose ring, nail polish in deep plum, or hair worn in deliberately messy braids that suggested creativity and independence. Evening entertainment meant venues where the aesthetic fit perfectly to small clubs with sticky floors and excellent sound systems, house parties where everyone sat on the floor, or late-night diners where conversations continued until dawn. The clothes moved with them through these spaces, growing more comfortable and lived in as the night progressed. A flannel shirt might be tied around the waist by midnight, revealing the band tee underneath. Or sleeves might be pushed up further as the room grew warm with bodies and energy. Shopping became an adventure in curation rather than consumption. Thrift stores and vintage shops were sacred spaces where women hunted for the perfect flannel shirt to one with the right fade. The ideal oversized fit, perhaps even better if it showed signs of honest wear. Goodwill locations in college towns became legendary for their selection, and women developed relationships with shop owners who would set aside particularly choice pieces. The goal was never to look wealthy, it was to look discerning, as if each piece had been chosen for its character, rather than its price tag. Personnel rituals evolved around the maintenance of the look. Flannel shirts were washed in cold water to preserve their softness and prevent excessive fading. Denim was worn until it truly needed washing, allowing natural wear patterns to develop. Doc Martens required breaking into a process that involved thick socks, band-aids, and the understanding that true beauty sometimes required temporary discomfort for long-term perfection. The look transcended geography, spreading from Seattle coffee houses to college campuses across America, but always with regional variations. East Coast women might add vintage band buttons to their flannel shirts, while California interpretations included lighter fabrics and the occasional slip dress worn as outerwear rather than underwear. The core elements remained consistent, but local culture influenced the details. This feminine interpretation of grunge created its own social codes and recognition systems. Women could identify others who truly understood the aesthetic versus those who were merely following a trend, creating an unspoken community of authenticity that valued substance over surface, depth over decoration, and genuine coolness over manufactured appeal. The 1990s grunge movement's impact on feminine beauty extended far beyond its specific Northwest origins, reshaping how an entire generation of women understood style and self-expression. The influence spread through cultural channels that amplified and adapted the aesthetic for mainstream consumption. Fashion magazines that had previously celebrated polish and perfection suddenly featured models with deliberately messy hair and minimal makeup, wearing combinations that would have been unthinkable just years before. Sassy magazine became a voice for young women embracing this new definition of beauty. While MTV's alternative programming showcased female musicians and fans whose style embodied grunge's authentic spirit, department stores began stocking flannel shirts in their junior sections. Though the mass-produced versions never quite captured the worn-in authenticity of genuine thrift store finds, the aesthetic's democratic nature proved revolutionary for women's fashion. Unlike previous trends that required significant financial investment or access to specific brands, grunge beauty could be achieved by anyone with creativity and patience. A woman could build an entire wardrobe from thrift stores for under $50, making style accessible regardless of economic background. This democratization challenged the fashion industry's traditional power structures and suggested that true style came from personal expression rather than purchasing power. Hollywood adaptation both celebrated and commercialized the look. Movies like Reality Bites and Singles presented grunge-influenced female characters who were intelligent, complex, and beautiful in ways that didn't rely on traditional glamour. Winona Ryder became an icon for her ability to embody grunge femininity while maintaining sophistication, proving that the aesthetic could coexist with success and ambition. These cultural representations helped normalize the idea that women could be powerful and beautiful without conforming to conventional standards. The beauty industry responded by creating products that helped women achieve the effortless grunge look. Cosmetic companies developed lipsticks in deep, matte shades that looked naturally stained rather than applied. Hair product manufacturers created texturizing mousses and sea salt sprays that enhanced natural texture rather than fighting it. The irony was not lost on observant women to capitalism had found a way to sell them products to look like they weren't trying. International adoption varied by culture, but maintained the aesthetic core values. British women embraced the layering techniques while adding their own vintage elements, creating a crossover with Britpop style. Japanese youth culture incorporated grunge elements into their own rebellion against traditional beauty standards, though always with distinctly Japanese interpretations. The global spread demonstrated that the desire for authentic self-expression in feminine beauty transcended national boundaries. First, the grunge woman mastered the art of strategic dishevelment. To every seemingly careless element was actually carefully considered. From the precise way sleeves were rolled to the exact degree of hair that should fall across the face. Second, she understood that comfort and beauty were not mutually exclusive to that the most attractive thing a woman could wear was confidence in her own skin, whether that skin was adorned with flannel and denim or not. Third, she embodied intellectual authenticity to her beauty, came not from trying to please others, but from expressing her genuine interests, values, and artistic sensibilities through her appearance. This aesthetic created a lasting shift in how women approached beauty and style. The grunge influence established that authenticity could be more attractive than perfection, that individual expression mattered more than following trends, and that true feminine power often lay in refusing to conform to others' expectations. Women who embraced this philosophy carried its lessons forward even as fashion evolved. Maintaining an understanding that the most compelling beauty comes from being genuinely, unapologetically yourself. The legacy continues in contemporary fashion, where normcore and effortless chic movements echo grunge's original values. Modern women still reach for oversized flannel shirts and combat boots when they want to feel powerful and comfortable simultaneously. The specific elements may evolve, but the underlying message remains constant: to that feminine beauty is most compelling when it appears to flow naturally from a woman's authentic self, rather than from her ability to meet external standards. Today's young women discovering vintage grunge pieces understand intuitively what their predecessors learned through experience: that the most revolutionary thing you can do with fashion is to make it truly your own, to wear your values as visibly as your clothing, and to find beauty in the courage to be exactly who you are, flannel and all.